Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm here with Andrew Schultz, and I'm not really sure how to do the intro anymore, Andrew,
I was gonna
because
say that was a
yeah, well, you know
really
what? It's
weak
like,
intro.
do I do the intro or do I have somebody else do the intro?
Well, you have to do the cold open, and then it leads to
The intro.
the intro.
Well, you know what? How about we go with this, huh?
Turn it towards the
Welcome
thing.
to another episode of Ask a Property Manager, brought to you by RentPrep.com, with your hosts Eric Worral and Andrew Schultz.
Oh, famous.
Yeah. How'd it sound?
It sounds pretty good. If you're holding the phone like in front of the mic, you're a lot better off.
Yeah, I had it on the side, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting fancy. We're getting fancy on episode
All right.
60 of Property Manager.
Yeah, it only took us 60 episodes to get an intro.
Yeah, yeah. Wait until you get to episode 120. This is going to be real high tech.
Yeah, right. By that point, we might even have like rocket ships and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So before we get started today, I do want to do a quick shout out / thank you to Bigger Pockets. I didn't show you this, but they sent me a nice bag here.
What?
Yeah, it's a nice Patagonia bag, and all of their books. So I don't know how easily you can see this, but
No, that's pretty. I'm actually just looking back and forth between the live feed on the browser, and I'm looking at the live feed that's going out to Facebook as well, so I can see it.
okay. Yeah. So thank you to Bigger Pockets for sending that out. I'm going to see
All
if we
right.
can. I'm going to see if we can possibly get. You guys good?
He's incarcerated.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Kristen's doing some tenant underwriting. Kristen's my office manager. I don't think you guys have actually met her. She hasn't been on camera before. She's
Yeah.
doing some tenant underwriting right now, and we just found something that was interesting.
All right. Well, you know what? We should probably get to it then. So we've got 3 questions this week from the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. Why don't we start with the first one here? So this one comes from Anna, and she asks, how much do you normally increase rent at renewal?
We typically will look for like a 3 to 5% rent increase. There's a couple of factors that'll go into that. One of the main factors that goes into it is have the property expenses change significantly. So, for instance, in West Seneca, where you don't live in West Seneca, right? You live in Amherst.
Our
Steve
office
lives in
in
West
West
Seneca.
Seneca.
Yeah. They bumped their property taxes by like 10% last year, 8% last year, I think it was. And I think they're going for another 4% this year. Like,
You freeze up a little bit, Andrew?
so that's something that would certainly factor into it.
Okay.
But usually, if all things being equal, we typically look for like a 3 to 5% increase on our tenants on a year-over-year basis.
I did comment on Anna's post in the group this morning. So we have a sample letter that you can use for your rent increase. But also one of the things I found interesting from doing some research on it is the Consumer Price Index actually has like a national index for shelter. So it'll just tell you like, here is what it was for last month. Here is what it is for the year. So granted, you want to look at your local markets to get an idea of what your market's doing. But I thought that was interesting just for kind of knowing nationally what the Consumer Price Index on the shelter is. So
it's interesting. I'd never looked at it that way. I typically would look at it from the just a cost of living. We kind of look at what the cost of living is increasing by, and that's kind of what we target for our rent increases. And usually it falls right in that 3 to 5% window, which is why we go with that.
Okay, cool. All right. Before we get to the next question, how you doing, Jen?
Of course. Good morning, Jennifer.
All right. I don't know if you ever listen to the radio or your satellite, right?
No, I dropped my satellite. I'm strictly podcasts and Spotify now.
Okay. Well, occasionally when I'm listening to the radio, there is a ads for Hamburg Overhead Door, and their marketing director's name is Jennifer Kuhn. So I hear her name on the radio, and then I see it in our live broadcast. I don't think they're the same person. I'm pretty positive, though.
I'm almost certain of it. Yeah. Where does Jennifer live? Like Colorado or something like
Maryland,
that?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move to the next question here. This one came from Justin. I thought this was a really good question. He said that he has a duplex, but it has a single heating source. So do you
Mhm.
allow for like one tenant to control the thermostat and hope they keep the peace while not running up the utility bill? Like, how do you handle that?
I would recommend something like this bad boy right here.
Here,
This is actually going into one of our. This is actually going into one of our properties. I think tomorrow this is slated for install. It's just a Nest programmable thermostat.
Mhm.
It's a duplex. I think it was actually a single family at one point that was converted to a duplex, but they never split the heating out.
Mhm.
So it just has the one furnace down in the basement. The nice thing about these Nest thermostats is you can program it, you can monitor it from your cell phone, and you can lock it so the tenants can't change the heat. So you basically set it to the temperature you want it at. You lock it so the tenant can sit there and crank it back and forth all they want. It's not going to have a bit of impact on the actual temperature for the unit. You can monitor it from your cell phone. You can change it remotely from your cell phone. The nice thing is, if your furnace goes down, you're able to tell, oh yeah, this thermostat's reading 50 degrees. Obviously, my furnace isn't working, so
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. What we're doing on that one is we're just going to throw one of the tenants a $5 a month rent credit, and they're going to let us use their Wi-Fi for it, which is nice. Um, Alternatively, you could get like one of those Wi-Fi hotspots and just put it somewhere in one of the apartments in a spot where the tenants can't access it. Do it that way. They also make thermostats that are regulated so that they only go between certain temperatures. And I
Mhm.
just saw an ad for it on Facebook the other day, but I don't remember the website, unfortunately. If I find it, I'll come back to the show notes and drop it in the show notes. But you can get thermostats that are programmed so that they'll only go between like 65 and 72.
Mhm.
So even if the tenant decides they want to crank the heat up to 90, it's only going to get as hot as that 72.
Okay. Then you'll be getting calls like, "Hey, my heat's broke. It's only going to
It
72."
won't go up any higher. Yeah, that's the other problem you're gonna. The cheapest option would probably just be a normal thermostat with a locking cover over it, but it's real easy to hit one of those with a hammer and just knock it off. So,
Yeah.
or we would in college we had those. We used to take if it was too cold in the dorms, or if it was too we would just take like an ice cube, put
Yep.
it in a bag, and like kind of tape it over the thermostat so that it registered
Yep.
cooler in the room and whatever to make the heat come up.
Just sent me down a trip down nostalgia lane there with that comment. I forgot about that.
Absolutely, yeah. See, well, when I was in college, we had boilers in our rooms, so we had to listen to the clang, 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 clang constantly all winter long. That dorm was probably the most miserable experience of my life.
Mm.
Shout outs to Niagara University.
Thanks for the debt. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it was bad. I hated that boiler system so much.
Let's see. Jen said that for her setup that she has it where she controls the thermostat upstairs where I live, and the tenants can open or close the main vents or use supplemental heating and cooling in their unit. So
There you go.
yeah, if you got some adjustable vents, that's always another way to do it rather than just having to control everything through a separate thermostat. So
Hmm.
okay, and hello, good morning, Debbie. Nice to see you. So why don't we move on to our third and final question today on Ask a Property Manager. So Andrew, I thought this was a good one. I left the name off of it,
Hmm.
but the question is here. So somebody had a prospective Section 8 renter who wants
Hmm.
to pay $200 out of her pocket because Section 8 pays a smaller amount. So Section 8 does not allow the renter to pay extra rent out of pocket. How do you handle this situation?
So, all right. So the way the Section 8 program works is, say you have an apartment that is rented for $1,000 a month. If Section 8 comes in and says, we've determined that market rate for this apartment is only $800 a month, and we're going to pay 700 out of that 800. So the tenant has a $100 portion. You cannot make a separate agreement with that tenant saying that they're going to pay the $200 on top of the $100 that they're paying for their portion. The tenant can't do that. You can't make an agreement outside of the lease to do that or anything like that. It's illegal to do that. And I was reading through the comments on the question, and I think that's kind of what this guy was trying to describe was a situation like what I had just kind of gone through there.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to remember is that Section 8 is a federally funded program. If you were to do something like that, where you're basically taking additional money from a tenant outside of the lease agreement, or you have like a side arrangement or something like that, if Section 8 finds out, you can lose your ability to accept Section 8 vouchers. The tenant's definitely going to lose their voucher, And you could be federally charged because these are federal funds you're dealing with. They're administered at a top level by HUD. And then usually they're administered, HUD filters it down to a state, and then the state filters it down to the local agency. You're still playing with federal funds. So my recommendation would be don't do it if the tenant can't afford the apartment as it's marketed, or if Section 8 is saying that they're only willing to pay a maximum rent of X and you want, whatever the market rent is. Just say, I'm sorry, unfortunately, that's not going to work for me, and move on. Yeah. But don't come up and make a separate agreement outside of the lease or something like that. Number one, you're just going to land yourself in hot water. Number two, it's completely unenforceable. So even if you wanted to go and evict that tenant because they weren't paying that extra $200, it's not part of your lease. You have no leg to stand on. You're just asking for a heap of problems if you do this. So just don't do it.
Yeah, it's not worth trying to get creative and figure out some other way to, get that money in some other. Yeah, I think that might have been part of the question where he's like, is there some way to work it into the lease or something? And like you said, just stay away from it.
You wouldn't be able to work it into the lease because Section 8 requires a full copy of the lease to be sent over before they'll issue the HAP contract.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to read that lease, and if they see something in there about tenant paying an extra $200, whatever, they're going to deny it outright based just off of that. So
yeah, and it's a few factors here. It's illegal, number one. Number two, it's like you're already dealing with a tenant who's trying to get around a system in some way.
Right.
So it's like, what other things are you going to have to deal with this person? Because they're showing you a character flaw right up front. So it's like, sure, if you're like thinking greedy terms, you might think, well, maybe I can get a couple extra $100 and the government won't know about it. And, I'm going to make this more profitable. But most likely you're going to run into some situation down the line where this tenant's going to do something that's, again, a character flaw, and it's going to end up, biting you in the butt as the landlord anyways.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this sounds like a situation where they're better off just walking away. You're just going to wind up in some kind of hot water here. You're better off not putting yourself in that situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes the 3 questions that we have for today. Thank you for sourcing those out of the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group, Andrew.
Absolutely.
If anybody has any questions, you actually aren't a part of the group yet, you can go to the group, search it in Facebook. I think the link is also beneath the description in this video. And check it out. We'd love to hear from you guys inside of the group. And thanks for those who submitted these questions. It's always great to see. So, you got anything else, Andrew?
I don't. But actually, next week, if we do an episode next week, it'll be a little bit different. But I'll talk to you about that after the show here. Okay. But for everybody who's watching, you may or may not see us next week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, until next week, everybody, take care.